Hearing online. All right, Mr. Klein, you represent the plaintiff, correct?
Correct, Your Honor.
Okay, and I think Mr. Schoenberger is representing himself. Is he online, please?
Yes, I am, Your Honor.
Okay, all right. Looks like we have a couple of different matters set. There's a request for an injunction, a motion for a temporary injunction, and then there's a motion to dismiss based on lack of in personam jurisdiction. I suppose I should take up the motion to dismiss first, because if I don't have jurisdiction, I can't enter an injunction. So let's deal with that first. I think that would be the defendant's motion. So, Mr. Schoenberger, I'm going to let you address your motion first, and I'm going to get a response from the plaintiff, and then we'll see how we proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. I formally object to the plaintiff's emergency motion for injunctive relief, including but not limited to plaintiff's supplemental filing and notice of intent, request for production of documents for lack of jurisdiction. That plaintiff clearly is feigning relief by attempting to adjoin a stranger who lives in Florida. This is an online person who goes by the name of Ashley Reagan. I have never met this person, never had dinner or lunch with them, and never been to their home. I have no ties to Florida. Ms. Reagan is an online advocate who has expressed their belief in freedom of speech and has repeatedly called out Mr. Hoffman because of his bullying, his online bullying. He currently has 5 cases that I'm aware of against people. And each of the people happen to be Christian. So I actually find him to be someone who is engaged in the harassment of Christians. I am a Christian. And I've learned more about this Reagan online person by Hoffman's doxing of her in the past couple of days. He videotaped me being served and published my private address, invading my privacy. He did the same thing to her, including a videotape of her license plate. She has now expressed fear for her life because of cyber stalking. Hoffman was unknown to me prior to his online harassment of me beginning May 27th, 2019. I did not know who the man was, Your Honor. And all of a sudden, 2 weeks after a suicide of a man named Isaac Cappy, this man used his 50,000 person social media platform to publicly accuse me, when the actual record shows there was a severe acrimonious relationship between Mr. Hoffman and Mr. Cappy. I want this man to go away, Your Honor. So I object and request my motion to dismiss this case based on lack of jurisdiction to still stand.
Well, I have to deal with the jurisdictional issue as opposed to the merits. I'm not quite sure I understand exactly, and it's important for me to understand because of the challenge to in personam jurisdiction in the long-arm statute, precisely what the parties believe is happening here. Let me go to Mr. Klein. Explain to me, what is this? Is there a website? I mean, what's happening here? Is there a blog? How is all of this being transmitted? And then it gets to the question of in personam jurisdiction.
All
as
of
to
the
whether-
above, Your Honor.
Okay, well,
There's Twitter, there's YouTube accounts, there's blogs. We've laid them all out in the numerous pleadings that we have filed. These all do relate to the internet and various forms of social media. The jurisdictional issue, I believe, is quite simple. In Florida, there is a case called Internet Solutions Corporation versus Marshall. It's a Supreme Court case from 2010, and the site is 39 Southern 3rd, 1201. That case specifically holds that for purposes of Florida's long arm statute, when defamatory statements were posted on websites, there is jurisdiction. That case has been applied numerous times, and most recently in this court, Your Honor, in another case that Mr. Hoffman has against another individual with similar postings to Mr. Schoenberger, an injunction was ordered by Judge Curley, Joseph Curley, and he found jurisdiction in that case based upon the Internet Solutions Corporation case.
okay. Mr. Schoenberger, just dealing with jurisdiction, not the merits of the case, but just jurisdiction. Anything further you want to argue on long arm statute or minimum contacts?
Yes, Your Honor. It's my understanding that there is no injunction against Mr. Ali Alexander, and that what Mr. Klein has told you may be a misdirection. It's my understanding that the Florida court found did indeed quash that motion, and so what Mr. Klein is trying to argue is that I have ties to Florida through someone named Ashley Reagan, who, once again, I have never met. It's an online personality. I also would like to argue that if Mr. Hoffman would like to claim defamation, why did he attack me first? Why did he accuse me of being a handler for Isaac Cappy? Why did he point a large amount of people and point his finger at me and say, go get him? I've had death threats. There are websites that Mr. Hoffman is involved in that are defamatory. He is on a popular YouTube channel with 30,000 subscribers, weight shaming me, fat shaming me, attacking others, making threats. He's got a history of this. So I did not draw first blood, Your Honor. As far as jurisdiction, I have no ties to Florida.
Okay, what is the case number of Judge Curley's case? Do you know?
Excuse me?
The case number.
The case that I cited that had the injunction entered?
Yeah.
Judge Curley's case? Yeah. That is case number 50, 2019 CA 016488-XXXX
It's 488.
488, yes, Your Honor. XXXX-MB. The case that Mr. Schoenberger is alluding to, the Ali case, was a different situation. In that case, the court granted the motion to dismiss with leave to amend because she wanted more specific details about the defamation. In the case before Judge Curley, where the injunction was granted, That was a much similar case to this. The defamation and the jurisdiction arise from thousands of postings that have been made on various media sites by Mr. Schoenberger. And these postings have all been accessed in Florida by thousands of individuals. And I think we have filled this record with so many exhibits and so many pleadings to demonstrate the defamation and the volume of defamation. There was tremendous defamation in this case before we filed the lawsuit, which formed the basis of the suit. But since the lawsuit was filed, we filed a motion for injunction, more filings, an emergency motion for an injunction, more filings, supplement number 1, more defamatory filings, and even supplement number 2, even more filings. And all these filings, Your Honor, you can go on the internet and you can find all the filings that I have made, which detail the defamation in this case and everything about what's going on in this case.
Well, okay.
Your Honor.
We're going to take this a step at a time, okay? Number one, I think based on Florida case law, there is jurisdiction when social media is involved. So I'm going to deny the motion to dismiss for lack of service process and for lack of personal jurisdiction. That doesn't answer the question with respect to your request for an injunction. It just means I think I have jurisdiction. I am curious about something. In this case, what has been alleged is strictly defamation. What have you alleged?
We've alleged defamation and recently, Your Honor, to tie in with the injunction, I filed a motion to add the count of tortious interference. Tortious interference was a subject of the injunction, but recognizing that defamation is not
you can't standing alone, you cannot.
Can't get an injunction for defamation. Exactly, Your Honor. And that's why we added the tortious interference count, which is the subject of defamation and which is and was the subject of the defamation in the decision before Judge Curley.
It would have to be. You can't enjoin.
I understand that, Your Honor.
Amendment issue.
I recognize we have First Amendment considerations.
Yeah, there's only a limited circumstance where it has to be coupled with tortious interference, and it has to be, I think with the tortious interference, it needs to be somewhat specific. It's specific relationships which are being interfered with. So I don't know, the amended pleading that you filed, when did you file that?
Yesterday, I filed that yesterday.
But
before the
you have a court to do.
But Your Honor, the injunction and the arguments in the injunction and the supplemental pleading lay out the tortious interference basis. And I can articulate that to you. And it's Mr. Hoffman's position as a financial manager and his relationships at stake and the defamation which has challenged Mr. Hoffman's credibility and honesty are the reason why we're seeking this injunction, Your Honor. It's totally based upon the fact that his business reputation is being interfered with and destroyed in this proceeding.
I have a procedural question though. You filed an amended pleading, but did you get leave of court to do that?
I filed a motion with it.
Well, I know, but I haven't heard that motion yet.
No, you haven't, Your Honor.
You're talking about cart before the horse. I mean,
Well,
the injunction has to, your request for an injunction has to be based on the pleading that's before me. The pleading that's before me is the original complaint. The amended complaint hasn't even been approved yet. It will be, I'm assuming, because amendment's freely given. I mean, there's no reason why you wouldn't be permitted to amend. But at this point, you have to travel on your original complaint, and all you have in your original, that's why I asked the question. I was asking about Judge Curley's order because Judge Curley's a fine judge. I know he knows the law. And you can't enjoin straight defamation. There has to be more to it than that. So my concern is that I haven't allowed the amendment, and now we're arguing an injunction based on a pleading that's not authorized of record yet. That's my concern. It's cart before
Your Honor, I recognize that. I understand that. And I would ask in these extraordinary circumstances that since amendments are given quite freely, and this is just the simple amendment of adding tortious interference with business, that we consider that, because, Your Honor, we filed this complaint and motion some time ago, and we asked for an emergency hearing because the defamation was continuing to take place on a daily basis. And I think I've articulated in my supplemental pleadings and second supplemental pleadings that 10, 12, 30 postings are taking place a day, which are damaging my client's reputation and harming my client's reputation. And to set this back a day or a week or whatever it's going to take will result. Mr. Schoenberger has made it clear that he will continue to post things and will continue to defame Mr. Hoffman, because that's what he has been doing. He posts everything that I file with his court and then posts more videos defaming Mr. Hoffman. And this is somewhat unique situation, Your Honor. I have been practicing a long time, and I have never seen a situation where defamation was just so horrible. You haven't even allowed me yet to articulate the type of anti-Semitism, the type of allegations that are being made against my client as a murderer, and that he's stealing money. These are all allegations that are seriously damaging my client's reputation, who is a prominent financial manager in Palm Beach. And as a result, Your Honor, I just request that we consider this in the context of the tortious interference, because that's going to come into the case. And there's, as you mentioned, Your Honor, that's not something that's going to be denied.
Your Honor, may I say something, please?
Yes.
Mr. Hoffman has a reputation online for attacking people and using anti-Semitism as an excuse. My business partners are Jewish. My best friend is Jewish. I'm not an anti-Semite. There are people who have spoken out about Jeffrey Epstein. Gabe Hoffman has accused these people of anti-Semitism, even though Jeffrey Epstein, as we all know, was convicted of being a sexual predator. I can once again point out that if Mr. Hoffman was so concerned about defamation, why did he attack me first? Why did he attempt to point to me as the person responsible for the suicide of Isaac Appy? So Mr. Klein's argument is porous, to be mild about it. He's making allegations that there are damages to Mr. Hoffman. There are none. Mr. Hoffman, on his own choosing, is going to attack YouTube sites where he is belittling me, talking about my weight, discussing other people. Literally, when I was served, he videotaped that. Last night, he was online talking about how he's going to take a 67-year-old woman and teach her a lesson. He has sued a 26-year-old man with mental issues in Canada who literally just had a doctor's note stating that he suffers from borderline personality disorder. So Mr. Hoffman right now is in the midst of um, 5 active suits and is looking to file another 5, claiming that his reputation is endangered. I argue to the court that these are his own behaviors, and I'm willing to submit them. I'd also ask the court if you would take a look at the case number 502019 CA 13281 XXXX and B. Now, this is the quash. It was a renewed motion to quash service and to dismiss for lack of personal jurisdiction. Mr. Hoffman made the same allegations against a defendant respondent by the name of Ali Alexander. He's made the same allegations he makes against me, against others. And once again, when this man attacked me and pointed a finger at me and said, Thomas Schoenberger drove someone to suicide, I did not know who Mr. Hoffman was. I had never seen his documentary. He's been a film producer. As far as a hedge fund manager, he went short on Elon Musk's stock, Tesla, at $252, and the stock is trading at over $1,600 today. So that was not my decision to short Tesla. It was not my decision to get up on YouTube channels to defame. These have been the behaviors of Mr. Hoffman.
Mr. Schoenberger, I've got to deal with some issues here to get this thing framed. I mean,
Yes, sir. Yes, Your Honor.
Thank you, Your Honor.
This is, sorry, I'm sorry to hear you, Ms. Klein.
No, thank you. I'd like to frame the issues.
Well,
Yeah.
no, you need to listen to me because I'm going to frame issues for you too, because I've got some concerns.
Thank you.
I mean, I'm not sure why you waited till the day before to file an amended pleading, raising the issue of tortious interference with advantageous business relationships. The problem is any defendant has a right to respond to those things. Here's what I'm going to do. Mr. Schoenberger, there's a motion for leave to amend. All right. You don't need to tell me about the merits again, because the merits are going to work themselves out in the lawsuit. We're dealing with a procedural issue. It's a motion for leave to amend. Those are routinely granted, but not always. The only reason they would be denied would be if the amendment is futile, if the right to amend has been abused, or if the resisting party can show prejudice. In this particular case, I don't think there's been an abuse of the process, and I can't tell at this point. I don't think it's going to be futile. They have the right to raise the issues. So I'll give you a brief chance to respond to that. But let me just tell you, Mr. Klein, exactly how I'm going to proceed here, because you're coming into an injunction hearing on a pleading that isn't even before the court. So what I'm inclined to do is go ahead and handle the amendment, give you a quick, I'm not going to hear the injunction today. I'm going to give you a quick emergency hearing. I am convinced there's now an emergency. So I'll give you a quick hearing, but that's going to give Mr. Schoenberger an opportunity to respond specifically to the amended pleading, because he has a due process right to do that. So I can't just disregard the fact that I've got a last minute amendment which materially affects your right to injunctive relief, because without the amendment, you have no right to injunctive relief, because all you have is a defamation case. So, I mean, I've got to afford due process here all the way around. So, Mr. Schoenberger, do you have anything to say about the amendment?
Your Honor, can I ask one question?
Yes.
I understand how you're proceeding, and since you have denied the motion to dismiss on jurisdiction, Mr. Schoenberger has not responded now to the initial count in the complaint. So to the extent we handle the amendment and the amendment is granted, I would request that Mr. Schoenberger be given an opportunity to respond to both of those counts, and that we set this on an emergency basis to hear the motions for the injunction.
I think that's the way I'm going to proceed. I mean, I
Thank you,
think
Your Honor.
Schoenberg has a right to respond now that the motion to quash service and dismiss for lack of in personam jurisdiction has been denied. He gets the opportunity to file a formal response to the complaint, although he only has to respond to the amended complaint, because at this point, now, have you filed an amended complaint or just a supplement to the original complaint?
No, amended complaint is the initial complaint with a second count added.
So the amended complaint would be the operative pleading. He'd respond to the amended complaint, and then we'd
Correct.
conduct an emergency hearing once he's done that on the request for injunctive relief. I think affording due process, that's what I have to do.
I understand, Your Honor.
Your Honor,
If I don't,
there's also,
hold on just a second, Mr. Schoenberger. If I don't
Oh,
do
yes,
that,
sir.
whatever I do is subject to immediate reversal. I mean, it's just setting up an automatic appeal.
I understand, Your Honor.
Mr. Schoenberger, go ahead.
okay, thank you very much. I believe it was purposeful that I'm being given these last minute supplementals. I am dealing with a extremely serious health issue right now, Your Honor. I have 40 stitches in my shoulder. I attempted to email your clerk yesterday to show you that I'm being checked out by a neurologist because I've had over 80 nocturnal grand mal seizures since February 29th when I had a slip and fall. I have been resident to even mention this because I believe it will be conveyed via Mr. Klein to Mr. Hoffman, where it will then be weaponized online, which is part of his campaign, which includes websites. There's a website called ThomasSchoenbergerFelon.com that Mr. Hoffman has put up. I am the subject of derogatory talk on a YouTube channel with, as I said, a 30,000 person monetized platform. So what I'm dealing with right now is an active health issue. And I'd like to ask the court for 60 days because I can get through what I need to with my neurologist. I had a grand mal seizure the last time I had an MRI. That was witnessed by the radiologist. I am being checked out right now for brain damage because of this fall. I've had a shattered shoulder. This is, not something to be taken lightly. I can have my attorney and my medical team, which includes an orthopedic surgeon and a neurologist, sends you supporting documentation for this.
Okay, well, let me ask you this, Mr. Schoenberger. Are you continuing to post online during this?
Am I continuing? I am a composer, so I compose music, but I will give you my word not to make any postings. You have it on my word. There will be nothing.
Okay. The problem with the 60 days is I've already declared that I'm going to consider this to be an emergency. An emergency wouldn't be 60 days. I mean, I need to get this resolved one way or the other. If you're willing to, I mean, in terms of the 60 days, another way this can be handled is if you're not going to post anything defamatory about Mr. Hoffman while you prepare your defense over the 60-day period, then there's no reason we wouldn't just enter a temporary injunction to make sure you stay true to your word. Otherwise, I've got to set a hearing on an emergency basis, which will not be 60 days. It won't be tomorrow, but it won't be 60 days. So
Probably 30 days. Okay, let's do, yeah, because I would rather not have the injunction. I don't think it's fair. This is a man who, number one, drew first blood, and number two, continues to attack me nightly on social media and repeatedly, and not just alone. He's got a gang. He has a gang that I suspect he is paying for. This is a man with a reported net worth of over $100 million, Your Honor. So I will.
Okay.
Yeah. So I would. Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. First of all, motion for leave to amend is granted. The amended complaint shall be deemed filed. So it's filed. All right. The only other thing we're talking about is how long to file a response to it. Now I can set technically I can set a temporary injunction hearing even before a response is filed if it's declared to be a true emergency, but I'm trying to give everyone an opportunity to be fully heard. Let me ask Mr. Klein, in terms of time to respond to the amended complaint, how much time are you asking that I impose upon the defendant?
Your Honor, I requested this be as limited as possible with an injunction. As you can see from my filings, what happened in this case is that it has escalated. Every time we filed the original complaint, we filed the injunction, we filed the supplemental pleading. I keep filing more supplemental pleadings because despite what Mr. Schoenberger might be saying about his health, he is able to post. He's able to post 10, 20 times a day. He posted pleadings yesterday. And Your Honor, these just have to stop. My client is getting death threats from this. Nothing Mr. Schoenberger has said about my client and my client's postings are true. He has not submitted any evidence in this case. I have submitted hundreds of pages of documents, hundreds and hundreds of his postings. He has submitted nothing. And he comes in here today, Your Honor, with made up arguments about my client. He has accused my client of murder. He's accused my client of being part of the Jewish mob. He's accused my client of being part of Mossad. These are all parts of the record, Your Honor. And to the extent this is not going to be handled today, and I understand where the judge is coming from in connection with this, we need to have an injunction to stop these postings immediately. What I haven't also mentioned, Your Honor, is that Mr. Hoffman's life is in danger because this whole issue with an imagined murder of Isaac Cappy is tied in with QAnon. And QAnon is a very dangerous organization which has caused harm to individuals. So this is something unlike any defamation case that I've been involved in. These are not just, postings that are saying Mr. Hoffman isn't a good person. He's not a nice person. These are postings that said Mr. Hoffman is a murderer. They're postings that are accompanied by violence. They're postings that are saying that Mr. Hoffman is part of a Jewish mob. This is very, very serious, Your Honor.
Look, I've heard, frankly, I've got to set the parameters here. That's all I'm going to do. This is an emergency at this point. So it's going to be the emergency motion for a temporary injunction based on the amended complaint is going to be heard next week. I will give you a time. I'll have my office send out available times. We're going to set aside an hour next week to hear it. Mr. Schoenberger, you can have sufficient, if you want to file an answer to the amended complaint within 20 days, which will be outside of the time that I have, because that's the normal time for filing a response to a complaint. It's 20 days. You can do that, but that doesn't hold up the injunction, because with an emergency motion, I can actually conduct an emergency hearing on emergency motion before the pleadings are closed. So you do get the right to respond to the complaint. If you want to do it within the normal 20 days, that's fine, but I am considering this an emergency, and I'm going to reset an emergency hearing within a week. But that will give you an opportunity at least to take a look at the amended pleading and be in a position to address it at the temporary injunction hearing. And then within 20 days, which can be after the temporary injunction hearing, you can file your answer to the actual complaint. But we're going to deal with the emergency basis of the motion first. And then I'll make a ruling and, we'll go from there. But I do need an order denying the motion to dismiss for lack of in personam jurisdiction and for service. So I need someone to upload an order to that effect.
I'll do that, Your Honor.
And also an order granting the motion for leave to amend. And then I'm going to give you dates for a 1-hour hearing next week to continue the hearing based on the actual operative pleading, which includes a claim for tortious interference with advantageous business relationship.
Okay, and Your Honor, if I may say something, thank you. 1 week will give me time to do so. Mr. Klein just said that there were death threats. He did not indicate that I have made them. He's mentioned QAnon. I have nothing to do with QAnon. These are the type of arguments that are circular and, as I said before, porous, where Mr. Hoffman has a reputation for being a bully and he's getting blowback. So he cannot look at me and say, you are QAnon. This is what he has done online, attempted to tie me to a conspiracy theory. I am not a person who has ever threatened Mr. Hoffman physically. Other people have. That has nothing to do with me. And this is what he is attempting to do. So I will respond to this. I'm going to ask if it's possible for you to give me 10 days, because I do have to go through neurological procedures, and I want to be in a state of mind where I feel that I can answer these interrogatories with clarity.
Hang on just a second. I'm getting, my Jay is trying to help me pick some dates for the hearing. I don't understand this.
Okay.
Right. Yeah. Oh, Monday through Thursday. Okay. All right. Okay. So next week would be, is that next week? Okay. I'm losing. Yeah, but no, the 17th, I'm looking at the wrong calendar. So next week, got it. And the 20th would be Thursday. All right. Okay. All right. I'm sorry. I'm having a conversation with my assistant because I'm trying to set time right now so you guys know what you're doing.
Of course.
I'm going to set the emergency hearing in a week, August 20th at 4 o'clock. August 20th at 4
Thank you.
o'clock.
Great.
Or do you want to
Thank you,
generate
Your Honor.
an order for me, Kim? Okay. We're going to generate an order setting it so it'll have the Zoom information on it. Now, the only thing is, Mr. Schoenberger, do you have an email address where we can send that? How did you communicate with us?
Yes, I did through email. That's how I filed my motion to dismiss.
Okay, it's on here. Okay,
Yes.
so we've got an email address for you. Okay, so that you can
Yes.
get. I know Mr. Klein will get his by email. Motion for temporary injunction.
Your Honor, can I make one request?
I
Your
have
Honor.
to.
Mr. Klein, you were about to say something?
Yeah, I'd like to make one request. Mr. Schoenberger has, spoken to you and raised concern about health issues that he has. But as you recognize, he's continuing to post. He's continuing to post an unbelievable amount of information about Mr. Hoffman and even about this case. I mean, he's claiming that he has physical health problems, but he posted the supplemental pleadings from the other day on the internet. And I know you're not granting the injunction, and we're not hearing that today, but Your Honor, it would be tremendously beneficial to my client to have you explain to Mr. Schoenberger that it's important that these postings stop, that they stop. And in the injunction, we're going to ask that they be removed. And it certainly would be great if he would remove them now. But at a minimum, I would like for you to caution him to keep this information off of the internet.
Well, you've correctly stated, I'm not granting an injunction right now. What I will say is the following. Mr. Schoenberger, you've indicated that you're not defaming him. Anything you do between now and then, which you post, is just going to be, if in fact there's defamatory, I don't know the merits. I mean, you both have given me your summations. I haven't heard the evidence yet. But if in fact you're posting things which are defamatory and continuing to post about him between now and then, it's simply going to weaken your position. But I'm not going to enjoin him right now orally from doing anything. I'm just going to tell him it's not obviously going to look good at the hearing next week.
Your Honor, I agree. Number one, and number two, I'm going to give you my word as an honorable human being not to make any postings. I believe that Mr. Hoffman will continue to discuss me on social media, so the inverse is also true. This also weakens Mr. Hoffman's case. I'm going to be asking for a temporary injunction against him as well.
Well, that's not before me right now, but I would suggest that both, and I don't know the merits of this case yet. I'll obviously know it after next week. I would suggest both parties cease and desist from posting anything about the other. You're just going to muddy the waters for next week is all you're going to do. So both of you have indicated, well, Mr. Hoffman has and his attorney has, that your statements about him are not true. So what I suggest both sides do is cease and desist until we get this heard, and then I'll decide what the truth is when I get to the temporary injunction hearing.
That sounds like very sagacious.
All I can do at this point, we're going to send an order, especially setting that emergency hearing. It will have the Zoom information for your participation.
Thank you, Your Honor.
All right.
Thank you very much, Your Honor. I appreciate it.